Welcome back to the Jeremiah Show. My special guest today, Chef David Skinner. He's a restaurateur, a winemaker. He's also a distiller, an inventor, a gastro-judge, and a Choctaw native. And I was really looking forward to this episode because I don't know much about the Choctaw Native Americans and looked at this as a real opportunity to talk a little bit about your heritage, David, and it plays into your newest restaurant, your restaurant that just got by Eater voted the number one restaurant in America, ISHTIA. Welcome back, David.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, could we talk a little bit? The soundtrack is so beautiful that you provided with some Indian art, Native American Indian artists that I'd never heard of. I've put them on my playlist. I'm actually going to reach out and see if I can get them on the show.
Fantastic.
Inspired me there, and I thought I'd love to know a little bit more about um, your Choctaw history or Choctaw history, the food, ingredients, if there are purveyors that you're working with now that you get and that you're supporting farmers. That's a
Okay.
lot. I know I just threw a lot at you, but if
Yeah.
start wherever you like.
That's perfectly fine. Yeah, so well, one of the things that we do try and do at the restaurant is buy as much as we can from indigenous producers. So we buy from a number of different tribes. We get our rice from the White Earth Reservation, which is Lakotas, and we get our beans from the Pimas out in Arizona. Um, we try and buy as much as we can from those groups because we want to support them, just like people are supporting us. And so the Choctaws have a very interesting kind of history. Um, it's one of the most kind of profound foodways of any of the tribes. There are 574 recognized tribes in America, and Choctaws are also one of the largest. They originally were over more in kind of Alabama, Missouri, a little bit of Louisiana, and the government moved them to Oklahoma on the Trail of Tears, and that was, back in the late 1700s, early 1800s, um, and so, their original diet was more fish, shellfish. They were great at agriculture. They they hybridized corn. There's a variety, basically the Choctaw corn, and the stalks would grow 20 feet tall. So, people have driven by cornfields and you see the, 6 foot, 7 foot tall corn, and that looks like something. But imagine driving by a cornfield and they're, the size of a two-story building. Um, that's how the corn used to be, and the cobs were dramatically longer also. Um, but uh, but again, through the Trail of Tears, they were moved to Oklahoma, had a very different you know a foodway there because. If you've ever been to Oklahoma or if you've heard a Blake Shelton song, talking about the red dirt. That is true. Oklahoma is a bunch of red clay, and it's very different than the more fertile soil you would get in Alabama or Missouri, kind of area. And so uh, when the when the government moved them, they gave them rations. So the government ration was basically processed flour, processed sugar, and lard, and that's where fry bread basically came from. Because when they were moved to Oklahoma, they weren't really you know they had issues in cultivating crops that they were used to because the soil was very different, things like that. Um, the game and wildlife was different, and so it took them a while, but in doing so, again, they had a very wide-ranging set of foods that they natively would have eaten back then. And so what we've done is tried to bring out those different foods, those different ingredients, different techniques that were used back then. So one of the um, how we tend to start the meal off once people get settled into the restaurant. And again, it's a bit of a I always tell people they're going to go on a culinary journey. They don't realize they're going on a physical journey when they come to the restaurant. We actually start everybody on the second floor of our winery, and we do a series of kind of snacks. Plus, we also serve them tanchi labona up there, which, as I said earlier in the podcast, that's probably one of the more I would say famous Choctaw courses. It's a soup made from basically hominy and pork, and um, uh, and so we tell them a bit about what they're going to experience, let them kind of get settled in, and then after we finish those few courses, we actually take them downstairs and walk them through the kitchen so they get to see the open hearth that we're cooking on. They meet the other chefs as they come through, and then we get them seated in the restaurant. And then their first course is what we call a welcome pot, and very traditional, and not even just for Choctaws, but pretty much every indigenous culture, including Thai that we discovered when we were doing the research for the Preserve restaurant. Um, that most of these cultures would have some sort of stew, in a central cooking pot, going in the village or wherever they were all, encamped, um, and visitors would be welcomed with something from that pot, right? So when people first sit down, our first course that we give them is what we call our welcome pot, and it's a dish of tepary beans that we get from the Pimas out in Arizona. Tepary beans are one of the few indigenous beans to North America, and we cook them with bison, and then decorate the top with flowers and chives from our garden. And it's a really satisfying dish, but I think it really sets the tone for the rest of the evening for the guests. And again, it's a way that we can again, help support other indigenous groups um, and set the tone for the whole meal. So it's, again, it's a tasting menu. I don't think we've touched on that, but it tends to be around 20 courses. Some nights a little more, a little less, but it allows us to tell I think, a complete story of not just Choctaws but indigenous people, and uh, and their history and their ingredients, because we use very traditional cooking methods along with more modern methods, but we're able to get those sort of authentic original flavors into the dishes, by using those ingredients.
Is there a reason why now that there is this that you have this vision for this restaurant, ISHTIA, this menu, this love and paying homage to and respect to ancestors and traditional uh, growing practices and traditional ingredients? Is there a reason why
Yeah,
this became important to you now?
yeah. Why now, right?
Uh,
So when I started Eculent, the precursor restaurant, uh, I said I was going to give it 5 years, no matter what, even if we had nights with nobody, coming to the restaurant. I'm still going to give it 5 years and just, you know, and see how it goes. But I also said I was only going to do it for 10. And when we got to 10 years, no matter where we were at, that was going to be it. It was going to close it and then do something different. And 10 years came and went in March of this year. We actually stayed up until April. Because we had so many people trying to get in. We're like, okay, we'll stay open one more month. But the idea for ISHTIA had been brewing in my head for probably a good 2 or 3 years, because I would say even as far back as maybe 5 years ago, I started introducing, in essence, Native American courses without calling it out, without telling people that's what it was. And I always go around and ask people, like, well, what's been your favorite thing tonight? What really stuck in your head? What blew you away? And these courses would always kind of be at the top of the list. People were just like, oh my God, that was just so good. And and so that had kind of been percolating in the back of my head. And then when we started the Preserve, which is the Native American and Thai restaurant, and I saw the response to that, I was like, okay, wait a minute. I've been, sort of doing these dishes undercover, and they're some of the favorite. And the preserve is, really hit a chord with people. So maybe I should just, do a restaurant that's nothing
Time
but indigenous, right?
time to tell the story.
Time to tell the story. And after 10 years of being Willy Wonka, I was thinking maybe it's time to be a little more Davy Crockett or something, and go back to my roots a little bit more, because the well the dishes are still sort of in the realm of eculent from a whimsical standpoint. Like, we have a dish that people just love, and they always are like, "Can I have more of this?" Um, which the dish is called Deer in the Woods, and it's we take a venison cheek and we braise it in traditional kind of Native American spices, and then we wrap it in potato ribbons and fry it, and it looks kind of like a caterpillar on a stick. And then we put it in this Aztec grass plant, and so it's like the deer's like peeking out through the grass, right? And we take it out, and people are looking at it, it's like, I don't know what that is. I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to eat here, right? Uh, and the story behind it is, anytime that I went hunting with family, friends, whoever, it was just out of respect that you use all of the animal. You didn't throw anything away. You didn't let anything go to waste. And um, we use the cheek of the deer for this dish. And I can't tell you how many hunters I get into the restaurant, because we're in Texas, so everybody has a gun, everybody hunts, and they're like, "Oh man, oh, we just cut the heads off and throw them away," and I'm like, You're not paying tribute to the animal that way, and
There's
you're
your
throwing you're
Julia
throwing
Child.
a- yeah, and you're throwing away all this good meat, right? And it's just, I know it's work to have to cut the cheeks out and things like that, but you're missing out on this great, just flavorful piece of meat. And so anyway, so I've changed a lot of hunters' minds on what they should do with the heads now, um, but I tell the story about, growing up, this is what you did, and it wasn't, about sustainability or any of the buzzwords that we use today. It was just, that was the practice. That was what you did to honor taking that animal's life. And and so I think that resonates with people. But the dish is, very, kind of whimsical, and people are scratching their heads like, what is this thing, that I'm eating? And then they take their first bite and they're like, "Oh my God, that's like the best venison I've ever had in my life." And and I'm like, "Well, that's the way it should be, right?" And
And that's
that's
the way it should be.
yeah,
The Washington Post says of Chef David Skinner, a chef with a flair for the avant-garde serves up 3 hours of sorcery. And now you know why.
yeah.
Now you know why. So we are going to take our last break, our final break here. Here's that song that I teased you with that you didn't see coming. A little Van Halen. Ain't talking about love. And I am with again Chef David Skinner. He's his restaurant ISHTIA was just named within this hour the best restaurant in America by eater.com. And you go and find out why. I want you to go there, make a pilgrimage to Houston, Texas, and go see our friend David. Go to ishtia.com. You can also go to thepreserve.com for his other partnership, thprsrv.com and ishtia.com to make your reservations. Best new restaurant in Texas by eater.com. Top, the top, and I do mean the top, number one out of the 14 best restaurants in the United States. We'll be right back.